Wouldn't you know it, I've mapped out my entire video content schedule for the week, and then Warner Brothers just go and drop a brand new trailer for Batman Caped Crusader, showing off 3 of the remaining villains that we hadn't seen much about yet, including Firebug, the Gentleman Ghost, and Natalia Knight, who's also known as Nocturna in the comics. Now, this is a completely unscripted video because the trailer has just dropped, but I have some thoughts about what we've been shown already. And I'm going to tackle each villain one at a time. So let's start things off with Firebug. It sounds to me like he's voiced by Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob and previously Penguin in the Batman cartoon. So that means they're not bringing someone back to play a similar role again. We can see from his stature that he's a small man, but he delights in committing arson. And one of the things that's really confusing to me, well, maybe confusing isn't the right word, but perhaps intriguing, that's a better way of phrasing it, is that his goggles seem to show the world in flames with people engulfed in the fire, but it's clear that they're not there. Look at how happy those burning people look to be running around. He's very clearly unwell. And they actually referenced this in the very first trailer that showed off Firebug and all the other villains, and I didn't actually pick up on it properly. But yeah, he's very clearly a weird, stunted little person. He refers to the truth of the fire as he burns down what looks to be apartments. So he's basically attacking people in their homes and setting them ablaze, and it's just making him giddy. And it's almost like he thinks he's doing them a favour by burning them to death. I'm very interested in seeing where they go with this, because Batman villains are often mentally unwell, but they're rarely this delusional. You'd almost feel bad for him having Batman beating the stuffing out of him. Almost, but not quite. Anyway, let's move on to the next villain that was shown, which is the Gentleman Ghost. Now, it's very important that you include the in his name for some reason. Traditionally, he has just been called Gentleman Ghost. Now, what I really like about this design is that he looks more like a highwayman, a dandy highwayman, than a 19th century gentleman. And I have to wonder if his name is kind of ironic, because you associate highwaymen with robbery and thievery, and I don't know, maybe there is a certain element of politeness, you know, where they say, stand and deliver, your money or your life, you know, that kind of thing. And that kind of leads me on to his plummy English accent, which indicates he is of some noble breeding, or at least well-educated. I found it interesting that he also seems to ride a spectral horse, and we see him riding off of a train and kind of galloping over the edge and running away on the train tracks. Speaking of the train, his little section shows him holding up a train carriage, which I suppose a train carriage is the modern day equivalent of the old horse carriage. Maybe, I don't know. Although maybe that would be a car, actually, now that I think about it. Anyway, something I thought that was quite interesting is that he brings up the quote from the US Constitution about all men being created equal. And they showed, just prior to this, the people sitting in the train carriages. And there's a diverse range of people. There's an African-American woman, an obviously Jewish man because he's wearing a yarmulke, women, men. He doesn't seem to discriminate at all. One thing, actually, that really leapt out at me is the choice of editing. It seemed to use that comic book panel style editing again, which suggests to me that that isn't something that was just included in that Batmobile trailer. It's something that's going to feature regularly in the show. It's not just a one-off even for that sequence with the Batmobile, which is, I think, very, I was going to say interesting again. I need to get a thesaurus. I think it might be a little confusing for some viewers that perhaps aren't familiar with comic book panels and knowing where to look. But I want to see how it turns out. I think it's very stylish. It's a very bold, creative choice. And just the final note on Gentleman Ghost. His design leaked back in March. That leak was completely accurate to what we see in the show. And I am now 100% convinced that that character in the original trailer that was consumed by blue flames and his mask burnt off his face is Gentleman Ghost. He seems to be able to teleport back and forth, which I think he could do in the comics as well, and I'm sure he did in the Brave and the Bold cartoon too. So, maybe he really is a ghost. We'll have to wait and see. Lastly, we have Natalia Knight. Now, this is a character I wanted to see more of, because we hadn't really seen anything of her at all. And the thing that surprised me about this is that she is a child, or maybe a teenager, because Natalia Knight in the comics was this like seductive, pale-skinned, pseudo-vampire woman that seduced Batman. But here she is a child. She is a very obvious child, and The thing that really caught my attention is she's running around with what looks to be Dick Grayson and Carrie Kelley. Both of them are versions of Robin. Now, Dick Grayson we know is the original Robin. Carrie Kelley is the Robin of the Dark Knight Returns era. She was also in the new Batman Adventures episode, Legends of the Dark Knight, where they talk about all these different stories about Batman. Now, they obviously haven't confirmed that that's Dick Grayson and Carrie Kelley. It could just be a really cruel tease. But I'm kind of thinking it might be worse, actually, if these characters exist and they are in orphanages and Batman hasn't intervened with them. It's almost like they're saying, yeah, their parents died, they're off in an orphanage, they're not going to be Robin. Forget about it. Get it out of your mind. They're done. We'll have to wait and see on that front. But anyway, getting back to Natalia Knight, she is described as having a rare affliction that is treated with electricity, granting her tremendous strength. We see her lifting up this massive, heavy weight above her head in front of a crowd of people. Now, she's not a blood-sucking vampire. She seems to drain energy from people, and when we see her draining energy from Carrie, her face kind of just distorts and is just kind of gross and creepy. Which is almost the opposite that you might expect from the comic book Nocturna, who was always supposed to be seductive and very attractive. And that is very in keeping with what Bruce Timm has said about this show so far. He said he doesn't want to do the obvious, he wants to do almost the opposite, things that we're not expecting. Because I guess if he's going to do the obvious stuff, we'll know how it's going to turn out. What's the point in slavishly doing exactly the same thing over and over again? It's better to try something new and see what works. And that's basically all that I've noticed from this very short trailer that was released. I think that that's it for Caped Crusader content until the first screening of it takes place on Saturday at San Diego Comic-Con. I could be wrong. Warner Brothers, if you're listening, please. I've got a life to live. I can't be just dropping everything and making videos about Batman Caped Crusader every time you feel like releasing some more information. Anyway, if anything else happens, I will endeavour to talk about it and share my enthusiasm, because I'm, as you can probably tell, I'm very excited about watching Batman Caped Crusader. I have the day booked off work on the 1st of August when the all 10 episodes drop, and I'm going to watch them all in one sitting. It's going to be great. Anyway, stay tuned for more stuff about Batman Caped Crusader, especially once it's come out, because then we can actually talk about some of these ideas I've noted and see how accurate I am. Spoilers, probably not very at all, but it's fun to find out. Take care then. Bye-bye.